Hi there, Colin Davis, ShadowTechAlchemy.com, SolutioPodcast.com. You can find music like that at the 01experience.com, 01experience.com. melissamari.bandcamp.com is where I'm putting all of her music. That song's not up there yet, but it will be. A bunch of other stuff is. And what else do we have? Do we have SolutioPodcast.com? Yeah, there we go. That'll be good for now. So that was Prima Materia. I've also got to get the music started for this podcast, the background. I'm like, where is it? There we go. There it is. Yeah, I knew something was wrong. So yes. So 01 Experience, Melissa Mari, and I want to talk about my work with Melissa today. So this show is called 21st Century Alchemy, and I'll explain kind of why I chose that title for today and what that means and everything for those who may not be familiar with my use of that term. But I want to comment on that song called Prima Materia. And man, I gotta do a remix of that. That was just the demo version. We just had the demo version and then we played live with it. But I never had like a formal professional recording of it. And the vocals needed to be turned up and stuff, and I gotta print out the lyrics and everything. Because that song is so powerful, and it needs to be sped up a little bit too. That song is so powerful and the lyrics are so deep and alchemical, and Melissa's performance is just always so alchemical, so amazing. And it's just like she was so made for putting the great work into music and into performance. She was so made for that. And it's just still so shocking that she's not with us. It's just still so shocking. But it's just so shocking that, you know, how dedicated we were and how much progress we made in the work. I mean, we matured greatly through doing the work. And then to think that it wasn't just some accident or whatever. This was an ongoing, you know, we called it the family virus, you know, cancer. And that had popped up before in her life. And she had always suspected that it might come back. And so that was back there, and we were doing what we can to sort of rewrite that script. And we didn't know how seriously to take that script, whether that thing was going to really do anything or whether it was going to be able to be rewritten. And then once she actually got the cancer, we, you know, didn't know, you know, what was the potential of survivability, and we didn't know. We just went through the process. And then ultimately, you know, the cancer didn't kill Melissa. Her system just shut down. Her stomach and her digestive system just shut down after a couple years of just, you know, it was painful. The way she had it was painful. And she was still handling it and everything. She was still doing stuff, and we were going places and doing stuff, but it was getting pretty aggravating. And her soul just said, no, we're out of here. Now, her soul could have just killed that cancer virus, that cancer tumor. Could have just done that. It's, you know, it did the previous time. And there was other illnesses that she had had all her life, and her soul took care of those. So why now? Why did that happen? It's been a year and a half now. In fact, it is the 7th of July. 2 days ago was the 18-month anniversary, or death anniversary of Melissa. So, and I'm just still constantly going, why? You know, why did this have to happen? You know, what is and I won't know, I think, for some time. I may not know until after I die. But it's, I think it will become clear, because there's a lot of other big scenes in my movie of life that have become more clear, a decade or two out. So if I last a lot longer, I don't know how long I'm going to last, who knows? Nobody knows. But I may be able to kind of see how this thing, see what the levels of meaning are of that occurrence and why that had to happen. But I mean, the way I'm continuing on the work without her is it's causing me to go into another mode. It's causing me to become more public. That's why I'm doing this show. That's why I'm doing workshops. The first workshop in this series is this coming Saturday. And so, I'm kind of putting things in another direction. It's less about our alchemical relationship that we had. And so now it's more about teaching and sharing it. So it's another mode that maybe it was just, we always knew that the work itself is more important than any one person's life. So what if there were aspects of our personalities and our codependency that was causing it to threaten the work, well, then maybe we don't know how it works. I don't know how it works. We don't know. And of course I try to make meaning out of something that, the atheists would say, well, you're just trying to make meaning out of something that has no meaning. Well, I don't go by that. I don't live that way. That's not how an alchemist lives. So, but I may not be able to figure it out for a while. We'll see. But I got to go with the flow with it. And it's been real tough, but I got to go with the flow with it. So now we're on this. So check this out. So I gave the title of this. I gave the title of this show, 21st Century Alchemy, a couple days ago, and just spontaneously. And like I've always said, sometimes I'm taking notes throughout the week and I know what I'm going to talk about. Sometimes I don't. And I didn't. I've just been busy. And so I just put that in there. And I thought, okay, well, I'll come up with something for that. Because that's an old term, and that's in our book, Shadow Tech. And I use that term all the time. So I thought, okay, well, I could sort of see how I could make a show out of that. So then, to kind of prepare today, I went back to our book, Shadow Tech, which was released towards the end of 2015, which was a little less than 3 years since we got together. And it's just like I was reading through. I had picked up Shadow Tech. I've picked up Shadow Tech a few times in the years since. Not just sometimes it would just be I needed to look something up. But I went back and read a couple chapters. I read the 0 and the 1 chapter. I read the emotional processing chapter. I even read the interview with Melissa, which is in there once. But I never sat there and read the whole book through again. And today I pulled up the chapter that was called 21st Century Alchemy. That's where I first really started using that term. And I read that whole chapter. And I was just like, man, everything that I talk about and that I share and teach with people today was right there. It was, I see areas in there where it's been developed since then, and I even see what I might think are mistakes or, just errors of some kind or another. But 95% of what's in that chapter is exactly what I'm still talking about today. And what, if anybody asked me, okay, well, how do you do shadow work, and what is 21st century shadow work, and how does, I would just explain the same thing. And it's just so incredible. I even explained in that chapter how Melissa and I got downloads, and I explained like what happened to us. It's also in the movie, melissamarimovie.com, but of how just this stuff just came to us. We just got together and the whole just bam, and it was just like sparking, and this alchemy came to us. I mean, we didn't even know, and I explained in that chapter, we didn't even know what really alchemy was. I mean, I had read that, because I had been looking at Jungian psychology for some years, and I had read that it was basically a form of alchemy, or that it was related to alchemy or something like that, individuation. But I hadn't really dived into it or anything, or really understood what the connection was. And then we just started doing this work, and it just started coming to us, and we just would have conversations, and it would just come out. And we would have downloads, so to speak. And I even was reading in the chapter about how that we were having spiritual experiences, like changes in our psyche, in our heads, different kinds of metaphysical, spiritual experiences while we were together, or while we were having conversations, while ideas were coming to us. So, I mean, we were just, it was on. And it's all documented in there. And I mean, across all the chapters, but a chunk of it was in that chapter. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, I haven't looked at this in a decade. I'm like, wow. And it just brings me back, and it just reminds me of how numinous our experience was together, and how amazing, and how it's similar. I mean, this is not different from so many stories of mystics that come into some kind of information, or channelers or whatever, that come into this stuff, and it just shows up. It shows up through a dream or through a vision. Or like Carl Jung's experiences. Jung's understanding, what he called the confrontation with the unconscious. Quite a number of years in his 30s, early 40s, where he was just doing all of this active imagination and inner journeying, and there was a lot of very powerful psychic experience happening to him. And really makes his whole, it's like when you look at that aspect of his work, it really makes him a mystic. And this is what happened to me and Melissa. I probably was not on the extreme side. I know that, people can have these kinds of experiences more powerfully than what we had. But it was powerful enough to where we recognized this is going on. Gnosis is showing up, and we were writing about it, and we documented it. And then we were constantly like, Melissa especially was like, document. And so we were always documenting everything in all, video, audio, writing, everything. But so that chapter really kind of, touches on a lot of what the shadow work is, and it's what anybody that studies shadow work is going to find out. There's nothing really that different about it, except for, and I'm going to read you, I took some notes as I was going through the chapter of like, what are the steps that were described in there. And then, so I have that. And then I have this new paper that I've been working on, which is called Alchemy, or Inner Alchemy. Let's see, what is it called? What is this paper called? This paper is called, I've been writing a lot of papers lately, Inner Alchemy and Spiritual Modes of Descent, the Evolution of Shadow Work. So that, and I've been working on that, and I've had some false starts with releasing it, but I'm finally done with that, and I'll probably have that tomorrow. So if you'll look on the shadowtechalchemy.com website, on the articles page. It'll definitely be on the articles page tomorrow, at some point by tomorrow, and tomorrow night. And then by the next day, I'll have it on the papers page, where you can download it as a PDF, as a white paper. And there's some other new papers in there, and I've been talking about that. The integral shadow paper is up there, where I put the shadow through the integral 4 quadrants, and that's a big one. And what else is up? Oh, and the shadow complex is up there, describing how complexes, Jungian complexes work, and clarifying some things about complexes and autonomous complexes. You know, these are the parts that you're working with in IFS therapy. These are the things that ancient people called spirits, and, you know, spirit possession and demons and all of that. This is all in the same kind of category as that. So there we go. So what I was going to do today is I was going to maybe kind of just do a little rundown, if there's time. You know, we'll see how things go. Of the content of that paper, or just the principles and motifs of that paper. So because it's good, and I'll explain in a little while why that paper might have some level of importance to some people. So the other thing I was going to say, though, before I get into the shadow work practices, is that it's just so shocking that, let me say this, and then I'll look at your comments, and then I'll respond to you guys, and then I'll get into the practices. But it's just so shocking, because what I'm going to say is that when Melissa and I were in our container together, our alchemical vessel, we were able to kind of just not worry too much about the fact that the outer world was very asleep and very clownish at this state, at least from the American point of view, very infantile and reactive and shadowy, obviously, and well past its peak. And that the people are mentally, emotionally, psychologically degenerating, obviously. There's still energy. People are energetic. There's a lot of energetics, but a lot of it is chaotic, and it's not grounded in I think there is actually some wisdom. When I look around, if you go dig for people and ideas and philosophies that might help to guide the flow of society or of culture, yeah, I think there's some wisdom in there. It's just that it's nothing new, right? It's just nothing new. It's like I hear it's like at the political level, yeah, there, you know, what are the liberals talking about, or what are the conservatives talking about that is anything new? Even to the degree that they are, because most of it's very shadowy, but even to the degree that it's not shadowy, the political philosophies, and that they're grounded, what are you offering us that's evolutionary? Where's anything evolutionary? Where's anything evolutionary? It's like, I could think of a handful of thinkers, and, I look for these people. A handful of thinkers, philosophers, that are putting something out that hasn't been said before, or that is a new synthesis, or a new take on essential principles. There's a little bit of it out there, but not much. And so I go back to the Jungians And I go, man, the Jungian body of work is just incredible. If you go to a place like Inner City Books, which was set up by Daryl Sharp and, with the assistance or with the blessings of Marie-Louise von Franz, who was one of Jung's main assistants, innercitybooks.net. If you go there, it's a book publishing company. Daryl's gone now, but the company is still there. There's hundreds of super high-end Jungian titles, plus whatever else the other publishers have put out, and what the C.G. Jung Foundation has put out, and just whatever other publishers. There's just hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of amazing titles by just absolutely brilliant people. Brilliant people in the Jungian tradition who were advancing our understanding of religion, our understanding of ourselves, of the psyche, of the history of human consciousness, and the stages of development of human consciousness, and the archetypal factors in life, and the nature of spirituality and spiritual practice. And it's just so rich, so deep. I can't think of anything deeper and richer. And yet, it's nowhere in the society. It's the medicine everyone needs, but it's nowhere in the society. I talk about it. There's a handful of people who talk about it. There were more Jungians and more people. In the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, people like Joseph Campbell were out there. Alan Watts was out there. There was plenty of people in the quote-unquote human potential movement. Or I can think of, later, Terence McKenna. And there was plenty of people who were coming from the Jungian tradition, who were just delivering and reinterpreting this difficult information and putting it in words that people could understand. And there was more Jungian analysis going on and everything, and so it was still fringe, but I think the 60s counterculture grabbed it and really ran with it, and so it got into all the art. Got into all the 60s and 70s art. It got into the jazz music. It got into everything. It mixed up with the Eastern traditions, and it got into those, and so there was a little more of this, but then we just turned to this 80s thing. The 80s got very superficial. And it was just, and the art world started to die, and literature, and just depth from whatever direction just burned out, and it was just papered over with just superficial cultural garbage that we're just swimming in now. Swimming. I turned on Instagram yesterday. I don't go on there. I never liked Instagram because there's no conversations really happening. It's just scrolling through people's narcissism. Facebook is too. It's just littered with narcissism. And but at least it's not just that, and there's conversations and people are talking about subjects, and there's groups, and there's some deep thought going on in there too, and you can just sort of set your through your preferences, however you work with it, you can get kind of closer to what you're looking for. Instagram is just now so loaded with ads, featured stuff, and I have a couple Instagram pages, one for music and one for my spiritual stuff, but haven't been using it, either of them. And I was on the spiritual one the other day, or I started it up about a couple weeks ago just to check into it, and then I tried it again yesterday, and I just had to do everything I could to try to get all the pornography off of there. And that was new. And it was the same thing when I tried it a couple weeks ago. It was just littered with, I never click on that stuff. So why is that there? And I just keep clicking, not interested, not interested, not interested, and it just won't stop. And I'm doing, AI searches for how to make this thing stop and how to set it to, display less sensitive content, and it doesn't do anything. It just keeps on hammering me with what, just right at the limit of what is legal. And then it's just, and then I go on my other one, my music Instagram page that has been more programmed to see music stuff. But it's just like, okay, great. Everybody's posting, I don't care what you're doing, man. I mean, if I care what you're doing, I'll follow you and I'll have a relationship with you. I'll call you, I'll text you, I'll go on your show, I'll have some kind of relationship with you. And I don't need Instagram to have a relationship with you. I'll find you, I'll know you through meeting you or whatever. Everybody else, what do I care? Why do I need to know what thousands and thousands and thousands of people are doing in their daily life? What does that matter to me? And why would I spend time looking at all that? And people are just blowing away their lives with that. And it's just like, and then you go on Twitter, X, whatever, and it's just a different version of, there it's more political and looking at, there's more worldly stuff, not just people being narcissistic there. But it's just such a complete and total waste of time. And I look through it and I'm like, where's anything that matters? Please show me something that matters. And it's like, okay, people are posting quotes of Carl Jung or Alan Watts or Ram Dass or Nietzsche. They're posting little quotes and people are just like clicking like on little quotes, and they're never reading a single book on any of those people. They're not looking into it at all. So their awareness of what is deep in the culture is extremely shallow. And so this is where we're at. And so if you're in the world of depth, you're estranged from the society. You are estranged from the culture. Now, let me put a little addition on that. And so I found this place where a whole bunch of really amazing, cool people go here in Austin that's focused on spirituality. And I love all the people that I'm meeting over there. It's amazing. But I'm getting to see where the people that I'm meeting over there are the most thoughtful, deepest kinds of spiritual seekers and inner workers that you're going to find in American society. That a slice of them is there. And I love them. And I'm happy to be there and happy to interface with them. But they don't have a whole lot of grounding in this either. Now, part of it is because a lot of them are young. And they're actually more advanced than where I was when I was in my 20s. So I liked seeing that. I like seeing these people in their 20s who are more advanced than where I was. So there's a lot of that over there. So that's great. But there's not too many older people in their 50s, 60s. The owner, though, is really amazing, and he's really super deep and amazing. But I'm able to kind of use that I can kind of like go to the general population, and I can see they're just completely cut off. And then I can go to the most esoteric kind of place and think, wow, this is a lot better. But this is extremely rare. And even there, I'm kind of rare in that place even. So this is what Melissa and I were detecting, and this was our reality, is that, and this is why we kind of just kept to ourselves. We did some public stuff and we made art and we put our art in the public, but there wasn't a whole lot of conversation to be had with people. And then we thought for a while that we would connect with the Jungians, with the classical Jungians. Like if we would just join some of these Jungian centers, and we did some workshops for a really cool public Jungian outreach group called Depth Psychology Alliance. It's since, I think, lost a lot of its steam because the woman that was running it, she left, Bonnie. But and I think a lot of the people that were in it were boomers, baby boomers, and they're phasing out now. But what we found with the Jungians is that there's two issues with them. They're either in academic world, and they're tucked in academic world, and it's like their little cult, even though academia never accepted the Jungians at all. Never accepted the Jungians, but they still feel related to academia. They still try to cuddle up to academia, which is just ridiculous. But and so there's that little thing. And if you come from the outside, then they're like, who are you? What degree do you have? And there's that whole kind of thing. Not in all of them at all, but there's a tinge of that's kind of there. And it's like they're studying the work. Some of them are. There's a tendency for academics to be more on the scholarly side and study, and be less of the practitioner. And Melissa and I, we were the practitioner. And so we kind of felt we didn't really feel a strong connection to the Jungian community proper. And then the other issue, though, I think we could have tucked into that. I think we could have overcome that and tucked into that if they had not been so allergic to any kind of red pill type stuff. Cultural shadow stuff, conspiracy stuff, and all of that, which is just the external correlate to the personal shadow. Or even if they had been less allergic to the shadow in general, because even the Jungians are allergic to the shadow. So that community wasn't really clicking. Although you can pull from that community, and there's just amazing people who are my heroes kind of intellectually in that community. We didn't really feel like it was clicking there either. So, and now here I am, and it's like, gotta just make my own thing. And it's like, wow, this is really outsider stuff. And it's such a shame that it's so outsider when Jung was putting this stuff out by the time it got mature, it was after the war. It was in the 40s, 50s. This stuff was just coming out. And then, yes, it got into the 60s, into the 70s, and then now it's like I was saying. So it's like, wow. And so all I can say is there will have to be a boost. There will have to be a jump. There will have to be a new peak. And I've talked about this. It's on the website that there will have to be a new human potential movement. And that those of us who can understand what we're talking about here and who are really dedicated to this as, in their lives and making this their lives, making inner alchemy their lives, we're we're at the very, very, very beginning of this thing. We're at the bottom of the trough. And we're just kind of here doing what we're doing and just kind of waiting for this thing to pick up, because people don't make movements as individuals. We do it collectively, unconsciously. These things move through collective conscious, move through the collective unconscious, and they pick us up and take us for a ride. So all we can really do is just, go with the flow. But it's just shocking, man. It's just shocking. And it's like, okay, so I just got to constantly, pull myself up energetically. And for me, myself, I mean, I'm just as creative as I ever was. I'm just on fire like I ever was. And I was surprised to see that after Melissa passed, that I would still be as energized to be an inner alchemist, to be individuating as much as I am. I'm just nothing, didn't skip a beat. The way it's happening is different, but so that's cool. I'm never bored, but it's like I look out to the world and I'm like, man. So that was like a little rant on that. Let me go through your comments, guys, and then we'll go into these shadow work practices that I pulled out of the chapter in Shadow Tech, and I'll re-explain for anybody that just came in, what we're doing here. But we're going to talk about these shadow work practices. So let me check out your comments. JG Gunner, he says he's ready. Yeah, that's great, brother. Oh, that song was a trip. Checking out 512. Yeah, does that mean 512 like 512 area code? Yeah, that's well, for anybody that came in later, you can rewatch this video when it's done. And I played the song by the 01 Experience, 01experience.com. I played that. It's called Prima Materia. It's about the work, with Melissa Mari singing and everything. So, oh, James, what's going on, brother? Good evening to you too. Working and lurking. No over. What is it? What is the word? Blabbage. Over blabbage. This go round. That's your good, brother. I think making meaning out of something that has no meaning ultimately gives you agency and is just as real as any objective meaning. You're on it. You're on it. You're on it. What else? So we're always making culture. We're always making myth. We're always humans are always overlaying semi-fictional scripting onto everything. There's nothing in the world that comes through a human being that isn't some subjective fiction, right? Just by the nature, like look at Donald Hoffman's work, or look at Bernardo Kastrup, or it's the subjective idealism, the philosophy of it. And, everything is overlaid with subjective biases and filters and archetypal patterns, and there is no objective reality that we know about. And so the only thing you have to do is just recognize that to the degree that you subjectify or artify or mythologize your life and occurrences in your life, just recognize that there's a spectrum there to where you go too far out to the abstract art realm, you're going to be pretty far away from everybody else, and it's going to be hard to translate with other people. And so that, you can run into an issue. And if you spend too much time out there in the most subjective mythological overlay, you might go crazy. Or maybe somebody who's already split up inside is the one who's going to do that in the first place. So, but this is what the artist is doing. This is what the alchemist is doing. This is what the Jungian is doing. This is what the mystic is doing. This is what the shaman is doing. And so that's what we do. We do that, but when we do it in the 21st century alchemy way, we do it with some recognition of objectivity and scientific rigor to some degree. We're not just making up our world. Hi, I come from the Pleiades, and you know, I'm here to save the world, and you know, some kind of fantastical Christ complex or whatever, you know. So we're not doing that. But I generally agree with you. Absolutely, that's what we're doing. J.G. Gunner, spirit possession and demons. Can I explain, please? Okay, well, if you go read my paper on complexes, go to shadowtechalchemy.com, go to the papers page, and download the PDF called The Shadow Complex. And it's not that long. I'm not writing super long papers. The integral shadow one is a little longer, but that one's 10 pages or something, I don't know. But 15. That paper is an attempt to explain what a complex is in Jungian psychology, and then to update it a little bit, and to separate our understanding from the shadow, as the shadow is known, as everything that you can't take, your ego can't tolerate, your primal nature can't tolerate your immoral and antisocial nature, so it gets repressed down, and then it gets projected out onto scapegoats. Right, so that's the standard operating of the shadow. Or it leaks into your behavior in all kinds of shady ways, or it dumps into your body as symptoms. So that's the standard understanding of the shadow. But then complexes are in this similar area, and complexes are sort of the sort of intermediary structures between the archetypal patterns of the collective unconscious and your conscious mind. This is in the Jungian framework. And if you get somehow developmentally traumatized as a child, usually, then your complexes don't come online in a healthy way. And then you're either overexpressing archetypal energy, or you're pumping it into some kind of sideshow, as Robert Moore would put it. And so when you have archetypal energy, ancient energy, whether it's warrior energy or lover energy or trickster energy or all kinds of different, archetypes, and you have this victim energy and hero energy. When you have this stuff pumping into your psyche like it's there, like it's always there, and you've got a complex that can't mediate that 440 volt energy, right? 440 volt DC energy, you can't mediate that through like what complexes are supposed to do. Well, then it's just blasting you, or it's turning into some kind of it's feeding an entity. The part that got split off by the trauma is its own little kind of homeless person. And that person is, you can put it like that, it's its own orphan. It's its own orphaned part. And it's getting archetypal energy in a way that's very unclean. And so this leads to all kinds of addictions and pathological behavior. And when you see people just stabbing somebody on the train or whatever, all that crap that we see online all day long, that's autonomous complexes. These are, and they look like what ancient people called demons or spirit possession. And it's just a psychological understanding of that phenomenon. Now, most people don't have complexes that are so autonomous and so split off and so pumped full of shadowy archetypal energy that they're just becoming outright possessed all day long. Most people aren't doing that. So, but these things are being triggered in your relationships. They are running in your life to some degree, and they're more mild. And you can't quite call them possession or demons, but it's just a milder version of what you would call that. So that's its own kind of pathology that you can sort of generally categorize as being shadow material, but it's of a different nature. It's the structural shadow, we can say, as the ego and persona developed over millennia, and this is in the paper I'm just now finished. As that developed over millennia, we had to shove more and more of our primal nature down. And so then that has to find a way out somewhere. And that is unavoidable. That's unavoidable with the way ego development has come. And so now we just have to figure out ways of working with that repressed energy and pulling it up and integrating it or sublimating it in some kind of a way. And we're at the cutting edge of figuring out how to do that. But then the question of autonomous complexes, which are created through specific or developmental trauma, from crappy parenting and from generations of abuse being passed down, that's avoidable. That's not structural. That's not built into the way that we're structured. Not everybody has all kinds of split up parts, right? And so, but everyone has shadow material, ego-based shadow material. So it's kind of two categories of shadow material. One is dysregulated unconscious energy, and the other is repressed because of our moral structure of civilization, so we have to repress it. Anyway, that's getting technical, but that's what complexes are, and that's the kind of the theory of that. Let's see here. Checking out 512. I'll admit that I've been sucked into the politics. I need to back off because I'm just pissed off every day with it. Yeah, their WordPress is messed up. Error connecting to database. I know that message well. Who's? Oh, are you talking about innercitybooks.net? I've noticed that when I go there and have gone there for the last few years, I've been checking in there, and it's extremely slow. If that's the website you're talking about. My website is a Squarespace, but it's a different platform. But yeah, their website is down. Try. I don't know. Maybe I don't know how the whole. I'm not a internet tech person, I never learned to code, but it's always slow, and they need to update that site, and they need to get that thing figured out for sure. Maybe I should send them a message and tell them to work on that. They probably know. Facebook and YouTube is doing that also. Oh yeah, all the porn and all that kind of stuff. I'm not seeing it. Like I said, I'm not seeing it on Facebook. It's not affecting any of my Facebook pages. I see reels of sexy girls and stuff, but I don't see, straight up pornography on Facebook. You might. I mean, depends on people's feeds or whatever. And YouTube, I'm not seeing it on YouTube either. I guess it's just but Instagram, I can't get rid of it, and I think Instagram sucks anyway. I don't use it. So Jungian shadow work is hard. JG Gunner, I've been really struggling with the practice. Turning the energy into awareness isn't easy. Let me read through your comments, and so that I can we'll talk about doing it right now. I mean, we're always talking about it. I'm always in and out of talking about shadow work on this show, but we'll get into, and as soon as I'm done with these comments, I'll go more quickly into really talking about what we're doing, and that for people who may not be spending as much time here. This is Colin the bee dude. Oh, that's Colin. Oh man, that guy. Okay, that's so great. Hi, Colin. Yeah. So we did a show, and you were on, you listened. I'm going to remember that's you. That we did a show about the synchronicity of you coming into my life, and you knew about my band and the whole thing with Melissa and the Melissa bees. And I got 2 new books on bee shamanism now, and the Eleusinian mysteries, and the the Melissa priestesses and all of that. We'll talk about that again. But so we talked about Colin and all that synchronicity with the bees and stuff. By the way, the bees are the foam in the tree worked, and they're not active anymore. I know they are over at your ranch though. Okay, so James says, nice. I read Bernardo Kastrup. I read Bernardo Kastrup, Daimon and the Soul of the West. Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, Kastrup's great. Black Swan and Fight Club are good examples of unincorporated shadow sides that develop outlets. I've seen Fight Club, but it's been so many years, and I maybe I didn't see it. Maybe I thought I saw it. Maybe I need to make myself watch that. I don't watch too many movies, and I don't know Black Swan. Yeah, their website is down. Yeah, okay. That's we're talking about inner city books. I was thinking maybe if you know them, maybe they don't know it's down. If it's weird because I'll check it again. I was just there 2 days ago and it was working. Yeah, okay. So, okay. Yeah, they're the bees are still in your backyard. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so now let us talk, guys and gals, ladies and gentlemen, let us talk about this, what I previewed in the beginning of the show here, that I went back to the book that Melissa and I wrote in 2015 called Shadow Tech. And I went to the chapter 21st Century Alchemy because I knew I was going to talk about this today. And I went and read that chapter again, and I read through what the prescriptions were that were given for shadow work and how to do this in that chapter. Anybody can go get the book. It's on Amazon or it's Etsy. Go to my website and get it. But so I'm kind of going in the order of operations of what was described here, and I still would give the same basic prescription, maybe with a little bit of slightly different detail and a couple of extra additions. But so the first thing to understand is, like, if you look at alchemy and you understand that it starts with the calcination, it starts with that's the shadow worker, that's the first aspect of it. And so you're burning up material, right? You're applying fire. So when you're using the external mirror of chemistry, like the alchemists, they have the external experiment, and then they have the inner state that is linked to the experiment. And they recognize that as they move through different stages of the chemistry, then that also has a correlation in the psyche. And they do, astrological, they bring in astrological correlations, conjunctions, and they basically do magic and incantations and prayers and active imagination, as Jung called it. And they're being active internally while they're doing these external processes. And then they're, as above, so below is the primary alchemical maxim. But when we're doing it in our version of things here, we're not messing around with outer chemistry. We're still doing as above, so below. We're still using the external mirror, like I was talking to Colin with the bee situation, and he's a beekeeper, and you have to go back to the prior. You know what it was? I put it up on the videos tab. It's called Living in the Movie. It's the Living in the Movie episode that I just put up. It's been up there a week, so you can go watch that. And I talk about the syncs with Colin and the bees and other syncs and stuff. So we're using synchronicities. We're using the external mirror of life, the movie of life, to reflect what's going on inside of us. But we're not using chemistry, right? We can drop that. And so, but in the alchemical tradition, the first stage is calcination, or putrefactio, if you're working with like plant material, rotting it down to the core. And so, or burning it up. So we're going to use the burning up analogy. And so we're burning up shadow material. We're burning up the dross, we're burning up our lower nature. We're burning up everything that we would consider shadow material. Guilt, grief, shame, fear, anger, rage, same thing almost. Envy, jealousy, all kinds of, narcissism, every form of darker material of the psyche, we're burning it up. And the way we're burning it up is we're putting the laser of awareness on it. That's how we're doing it. When we talk about using fire in inner alchemy, it's the fire of awareness. It's your awareness. You weren't using awareness before. You were letting it just do its thing. And it was feeding all kinds of complexes or other patterns. And now you're putting your eyeball on it. You pulled the rock up out of the garden and you looked underneath the rock and there was a whole bunch of bugs down there doing their bug things. And there was a lizard under there and there was some worms and there was some all kinds of bugs and beetles and everything, and they were all doing their thing under there, and no one knew anything about them because no one looked. You pull that rock up, and the light comes on them, and they start to scurry. And so it's the same thing with this. And so that what we're doing is we're burning up shadow material through applying awareness. And the more focused that we are, the more attentive and focused, and the more we stay on it and take notes about what we're finding and apply some scientific rigor to it and be like, okay, this is what I'm finding. These are the thoughts. These are the feelings. These are the behaviors. These are the habits. These are the triggers. These are those things that are all pathological. And you're, okay, let's write that one down. Let's write that one down. This showed up. This showed up. This kind of fear. This kind of anger. This kind of shame. This kind of guilt. In this situation. So we're always keeping a journal. We're always keeping a dream journal too. And, hold on, let me write something down. And so that's us putting the light of awareness on things. And you don't have to do a whole lot more than that right now. You just put your awareness on the stuff that was under the rock, that now you're pulling up the rock and you're looking at it and you're cataloging it and you're getting familiar with it and you're getting to know the material. And you're trying not to judge yourself and recognize that, and I'm keeping notes to myself here, try to recognize that your recipe, your formula of shadow material uses the same components that everyone has. Your recipe of shadow material, your what we would call, Melissa and I call your pain body profile, is use the same basic ingredients that everyone has. Some people's recipe doesn't have a whole lot of guilt in it. I don't have much guilt. recipe, in my shadow recipe. But I got all the other stuff, a lot of other stuff. And so everybody has a little bit different formulation. So don't feel bad. The only difference between you and anybody else is that you're looking at it and they're not. If everybody else was looking at it, it'd be like, oh, yeah, tell me about it, yeah. So there's nothing about what you have. It's particular to your family, it's particular to your culture, but your shadow material is nothing special. It's human stuff. And so just recognize that. Again, the only difference between you and anybody else is that you're looking at it and they're not. But that means that you have the ability to develop and to heal, and they don't. And it's not a competition at all. I wish they were doing it. But that's the only difference. There's nothing about what you have that's ultra yucky, ultra evil or anything. So we're using awareness. We're burning stuff up through the light of awareness. And the more you put awareness on your shadow material, then it does start to dissipate. It starts to lose its hold. It starts to lose its energy. And so this is how you're starting. This is the basic thing. Journaling and keeping track of what's in your closet, what's under the rock, what's under the rug. Then we move to observation of the stories we tell ourselves, judgments of ourselves and others, beliefs about the world, and what is truth. Right, so this is less about the, it's like all the material I talked about a second ago, guilt, grief, rage, shame, fear, all that stuff, sexual stuff, all that's primal drives and structural shadow material. And then there's this cultural shadow material that is sort of another level up from that. And so the stories we tell ourselves, a lot of this is coming from your family and from your general culture. Judgments of ourselves and others, yes, we're still comparing ourselves based on what we're seeing outside in the world. Beliefs about the world and what is truth. This is in the domain of cultural scripting, lower left-hand quadrant in integral theory. So that's that. Melissa and I, we wrote a song called Just a Story. At some point, I'll put that out. I just found a video of that, of us playing that. It's one of our first songs with the O1 Experience. We didn't put it out, though. It was kind of folky, or I don't know what. Oh, I know what it was. We cannibalized it for another song. We made another song out of parts of it. So we didn't put the original out. But yeah, it's just a story. All this stuff, these are just stories, right? And so once you can see the stories that are running, right, your own internal propaganda that you propagandize yourself with. That's what this is. This is your inner propaganda. And your shadow mythology. And so that's got to get taken apart. Put that in your journal. So that's another level of this. It says observation of cultural and familial patterns. Yes, same thing. That's what I just said. Observation of our feeling states, moods, and the triggering of complexes. Right? So this is where it's just the same thing, where you're putting the light of awareness on your inner state, but it's more in the domain of the feelings and less about the thoughts. And so feelings, the way you put awareness on feelings is you feel them. That's how awareness works in the domain of feelings. You feel the feelings. And so if you were shoving the feelings down before, which everybody is to some degree, when you're shoving those down, we're not looking at the feelings with our logical mind. Yeah, we can do that too. But the way you actually burn them up or process them or move them is through the feeling of the feelings, letting them move through your psyche and up and out. And you learn how to do what we call emotional processing, and that's in Shadow Tech also. That's the chapter after this one. This one's 21st Century Alchemy, and then the next chapter is called Emotional Processing, and it gives you the basic practice that we stole from John Ruskin. He does it in meditation practice, and we do it when we get triggered in life. And you don't have to just process your emotions when you're sitting and meditating. You just do it anytime they're triggered. You find a space in life, you go kick back in the car or go into your room or go for a walk or whatever, wherever you go, and you go process your emotions and you pull those up. And I've got videos on Shadow Tech Alchemy, YouTube, and it's in Transforming Darkness. That's the other book. It's in everywhere. I got emotional processing everywhere. So that's, I'm not going to go into it too deeply today. People can ask about it if they want more. Just go get Transforming Darkness, because I just copied it out of Shadow Tech and I put it into Transforming Darkness, and then I give that away for free on the website. So so then we're feeling the rage, we're feeling the grief, we're feeling the fear, we're feeling the anxiety, and we're letting it move through the body. And we can do body-based shadow work too. Hold on a second. Which is the open focus. There's all kinds of somatic practices. This is in the Integral Shadow paper. I go through a bunch of that. Open focus is very good. Less Femi open focus. Okay, I won't talk about too much about that because I want to keep going. Observation of our feelings, states, moods, and the triggering of complexes. When do you get triggered and taken over? When does something come over you and gets you and turns you into something lower? Turns you into something more immature? Relationships are the best way to trigger these things, but they can be triggered through, looking at social media or, driving on the highway or at work or wherever. And so we're analyzing what's triggering us, and analyzing complexes is its own kind of practice with its own kind of view and toolkit. And the simplest way to kind of start to get familiar with it, I recommend people look at Eckhart Tolle's work, the chapters of his books on the pain body. And it's a simplified understanding, and I don't really use the terminology anymore that a complex is a parasite, although it does behave like one. But that will, if you listen to him talk about the pain body, there's a lot of YouTube videos on it, or you read either of his books with the pain body chapters, you get a good feel for what is going on when a complex is activated, an autonomous complex is activated. And then IFS, internal family systems. Right, Richard Schwartz, internal family systems, with the whole thing with parts, exiled parts, protector parts, managers, firefighters, that whole system. It's very, very useful and a kind way to refer to your complexes, and to try to understand them and to understand what their scripts are and what their needs are. So you can look at internal family systems for that. And so getting some kind of vocabulary around complex work and understanding what's getting triggered and where that comes from. And then you can also use Jungian psychology to kind of figure out what its archetypal core is. This is getting a little more advanced because a complex always has an archetypal core. And that's not so much discussed in IFS, but I just throw all these things together. You got to overlay all these maps if you really want a deep understanding. Most people, they'll be good with just IFS. So there's that. Observation of behavior, habits, and life cycles. I'm kind of going through the quadrants. If you know integral theory and you know my work on the 4 quadrants, and I'm kind of going through the quadrants here. And so here's where we're doing the same thing we're doing with awareness. It's all about awareness. And we're bringing awareness to our automatic behaviors, our habits and behaviors that are automatic, and the repeating cycles, life cycles, of anxiety, of depression, of anger. We're just looking at it all. Remember, you don't have to do a whole lot except for look at it, except in the emotional way. You have to process it. So you have to actually feel the emotions behind what you're digging up through the emotional processing. But other than that, you're just looking at it. You're just journaling it, keeping track of it, forming an inventory of what's down there. And just the looking itself with a more increasingly focused eye. And part of doing that is conversing with people about it. Right? So this is what's so great when you have a partner that you can do this with. And, if you can do it in your relationship, because that person knows you better than anybody, and that person is there in your life every day. And so you can work with that person. That's the best. If you don't have that, you need someone else. You need someone. I do that for people, but you need someone, whoever, that will be a mirror for you. Even if that other person isn't as educated as you are about this work, if they will listen and maybe learn something from you, but just be the other side of the circuit so that you can get it off your chest, so that you can get it out into the field, out of you and into the field, that's going to help a lot. Because just journaling is a lot. Keeping a diary or a journal is a lot. Putting it on Facebook. If you can put your junk on Facebook, that's a lot too. That's great also. But if you can speak about it to somebody, then that really kind of completes the circuit of how that needs to be pulled up into consciousness. Develop a broad and deep mapping of our inner states. Yeah, that's what we're doing. We're developing a broad and deep mapping of our inner states. No need to act, just observe. Except I did add that the emotional processing is like an act, in that you have to physically allow the emotions to move through you, and then you have to go sit down with them, and it is an actual practice, takes willpower. All of it takes willpower. It's just a different kind of practice. Application of mythic archetypes to our personality traits and patterns. Right. So this is what you're getting a lot of in the Jungian system. These guys, these Jungians, they're more into the mythic stuff than I am. I'm into it, but not as much as a lot of Jungians are. I mean, they are just so deep. A lot of them are, not all of them. Robert Moore was not so into the stories, the myths. He's more structural. Some of these people are more structural, more about how the psyche's put together, and less about the scripting that's running it, the mythic scripting. But so what the Jungians are always doing is they're always going into mythology, whether it's Christian or whether it's, Judeo-Christian, or whether it's Greek especially. They're going into that a lot. And they're pulling out these ongoing archetypes. Like everybody knows that if you look at the Egyptians and the Greeks and the Romans, you're going to see the same gods and goddesses, the same figures, just renamed, right? And then you're also going to see them in Christianity if you're able to. It's just a little closer to us. It's a little harder to see, and it's shifted. The psyche changed, so it's shifted a little bit. And a lot of junk got repressed through Christianity too, because there was a lot of stuff in the prior systems that had to go into the shadow, right? So the goddess had to go into the shadow, and a lot of stuff that the devil holds had to go into the shadow. So you kind of have to find all that stuff in the prior systems. In the Christian system, you have to dig deeper, and you have to go into the periphery and into the underground to pull it out. But it's all there. So these mythic personifications, they represent patterns in the collective psyche that are ongoing and maturing and developing, but they're always there. And this is the storehouse from which we get our own personal energies, our own personality types. It's like we go to the store and we pull product, food product off the shelf, but where's that made? It's made in a factory somewhere, and before that it's on a farm somewhere. So it's like the Jungians are going back to where the actual original sources of our psychic energies are coming from, and because you can't go into the collective unconscious and go scan it like you can computer code, they're looking at myth as basically the code, right? They're using it as it's not even the code itself, but it's imagery that is telling the story of what the code is, the codes of human consciousness. So that's what they're doing. So now when you start to get familiar with the mythology, and you start to develop symbolic literacy, then you can start applying what you're finding. Like if you followed me, I talk about Melissa and her being influenced by Persephone, right? So if you can find these greater archetypes that are operating in the collective unconscious, and you can find which ones really got a hold of you, which ones are really feeding your complexes, then that's another level of analysis. It's a very helpful level of analysis too. And I hope I explained that in a way that makes sense. But so that's another layer of this. I'm just like giving you the layers of how we're doing this alchemical shadow work. I mentioned this before, we're examining synchronicities in the outer world. Like I gave some examples in the chapter in Shadow Tech that of things that were going on in our life, like that these people were plumbing. The plumbers were there at our loft. We had this live-work loft. My studio was there. We lived there, and the whole building was getting the plumbing done. And there was like a series of plumbing issues that were happening. The guy next door was a plumber, and then this plumbing in the building, and then there was clogs in my own piping, and there was all this plumbing issues for a long time. And that was correlating to the work that we were doing. And so we were like, yes, as above, so below. And I think I gave another example of that. And of course, last week when we did the Living in the Movie, or a week before that, whenever it was, that's all we were talking about. So yes, so we're doing that too. We're using the synchronicities that show up in the outer world, the ones that have energy, numinosity. We're going, what does this mean? And I told you in that Living in the Movie episode about how when I was a kid, my parents were actors, and my dad studied directing, and he used to take us to see great films. And we'd walk out of the movie and he would say, you remember that scene, or do you remember that scene? What does that mean? What does that mean? And so that's what we're doing as film students. We're asking, what does it mean when something shows up, like what Colin was saying earlier, when we first started talking to him tonight about the movie, the movie of life. And so I won't go too much further on living in the movie, and because we talk about it all the time. Examining things, and then emotional Okay, so that's kind of the full list of what was in that chapter, plus a little bit of extra that I just added. So that was the whole living in the movie chapter from our book Shadow Tech. And so I think I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, is just, run through that with you guys. And that sounds like a lot. That is a lot. But it just becomes, if I broke down, all the things that you do every morning when you get up in the morning and you take a shower and you make breakfast and then you go get gas for the car, and it's okay, it's a lot of steps. So what? It's just like it just gets habituated. It gets programmed into you. And so this is just part of your, or if you're an artist and you're going to paint something, if you're a painter, that's like, okay, you got to set up this and you got to set up that, and you get your paints ready and blah, 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 and then this environment and everything in the right space, the right time and all that. Or you're a musician, you got to, tune up your instrument and get all your gear running, or go to band practice. And, there's all this preparation that goes into whatever it is that you're doing. But you enjoy doing it, and it just becomes part of life. And so it's the same thing with this inner work. It's just part of life and just part of your practice. And as you do it, you get lighter. Let me talk a little bit about that. What do you get out of all this? Well, besides the fact that it's just incredibly, if you're oriented in this way, it's incredibly energizing and it's incredibly meaningful. And you may not know this until somebody tells you this, but you're engaged in the most cutting edge behavior that human beings are participating in. You might have thought that it was these monks up in the mountains in the Himalayas or whatever, and they're the most advanced people, but no. They in some ways, they got an easy route to it. And you're living in this crazy matrix world, and then at the same time, you're working on your consciousness and you're going into your shadow, and you're not just bypassing it or just through like a lot of like what I explained in this other paper, the liberation paths, the Eastern liberation paths, where you're trying to cut it and you're trying to rise above it or dissociate from it. No, you're going into it and you're burning it up. This is more advanced. This is the most advanced spiritual practice that there is. So, that's what you're engaged in. You're engaged in, if you're doing this seriously, you're engaged in the most advanced spiritual practice that's ever existed in human history. And there's a lot of spiritual practices that do certain things very, very deeply and very amazingly. But with this, you get to put them all together. There's nothing from any spiritual practice that you can't add to your recipe, right? So you just have the alchemical framework, and then you can add whatever you want from Eastern practices, from shamanism, whatever. Magical practice, if you're into that, whatever, you can add that in. So it's a synthesis. It's the most advanced form of spiritual practice ever known that you can be doing yourself. And so you're basically a guinea pig. Melissa used to call herself a guinea pig for the great work. You're basically you're the experimenter and you're the experiment to basically practice evolving human consciousness. And whatever you can pull off, the rest of the universe will use. You think the universe is so advanced that it could invent all this, but then it just throws away all of our personal experience and doesn't use it? Hell no. Of course it's using it. That's part of evolution. That's the part that the scientists haven't figured out yet. Kastrup is talking about something like that, probably. Yeah, of course. I don't know if we need to think about it as an Akashic record or anything like that. I don't know if it's, that just kind of mythologizes it. But somehow, life, nature herself, is using what you're succeeding at and what you're failing at too. Just learning from successes and failures, and then using that to advance, to evolve all of human consciousness. That's the project you're engaged in. And then at the personal level, you're lightening up your own load of shadow material, of garbage, right? Of stuff that you had in the closet. You're lightening up all of that. And that's, it's burning up. It's getting lighter and lighter. And so when you do that, you get more access to higher states of consciousness. You get more access to your heart chakra. You get more access to the aspects of your consciousness that were repressed. The golden shadow is what you're getting access to. You're getting access to your gold, your highest talents and capacities that were all covered up in shame and guilt and fear. So as you burn all that stuff, as you burn it up, the golden shadow comes out. You're also, by spending all this time developing yourself inwardly, you're getting to feel the difference between what Jung called the self, with a capital S, and the ego, or the complexes. You're like, okay, I got my conscious mind, then I got these automatic programs, these complexes, and then I've got the self. Then I've got the God image within, the imago Dei within. And where's that taking me? My soul code, where's that taking me? So, what does that want for me? My daimon, where's that taking me? So let me listen to my daimon and not listen to my complexes as much. Let me talk to my complexes, but with more empathy. And then let me understand that a lot of the scripting that's going on in my ego isn't even mine. It's my family stuff. It's my culture stuff. Let me start finding out what my soul code is, and let me start living by that. And as you start loosening up and lightening up all this junk, and it starts burning up, and you start getting lighter, and you start getting more familiar with your inner state, then a lot of the stuff that was plaguing you before just doesn't plague you anymore. You might still have some of it. You always still have some of it. But it's like Melissa and I used to say, I think we probably got this from Michael Meade, is that you get your fate and your destiny. Your fate or your destiny is everything that you're here to do in your soul code. And your fate is everything that is, you could say, getting in the way of that. Or I could say, your destiny is what you can pull off despite your fate. Right? And so there's scripts that come with you. It's like Melissa. She had that cancer virus script. And it's like she could only live to age 62. And it's like, wow, that's quite a fate. I mean, people die a lot younger. People die at age 16, 18. They don't even get a chance to have a life. People die in infancy. So it's still a pretty good life. And it was very, very dynamic. And she awakened a whole lot. She basically is my hero, basically. She's the example of what an alchemist should be. So, and now I'm here like sharing her with the world. And so I'm part of that. But so that's her destiny. And then all of the music and incredible art that she made and all the people that she touched and inspired through her amazing performances and all that, that was her destiny. And then her fate was the stuff that came along with it that couldn't be gotten rid of. And we were hoping that if you do this work seriously enough, that you will be able to burn up some of your fate. The Eastern traditions, they call it karma. So maybe you could burn up some of your fate, and so maybe you could live more of your destiny. But what we found actually, at least in our example, is that you're going to manifest your fate or your destiny regardless. If you will just concentrate on that and burn up all this junk, then you will manifest it, and you will drag your fate with you, and that will be some of your suffering, and that will be there. And it's like the Buddhists, the truth of dukkha. You are not getting out of the suffering part. But wouldn't it suck to have to suffer like we all have to suffer, and then for your soul code never to fully manifest? Wow, wouldn't that suck? So wouldn't it be better to manifest your soul code and suffer through the fate? Yeah, that's better. A lot better. That's way more heroic. That's way more useful to the greater ecosystem. So, and then your relationships are getting better. Your relationships are evolving. It's like I was talking about earlier about how it's hard to find people in this world that even have any experience really developing themselves and doing this work. I can find some of these people at this Casa de Luz place. It's like, wow, how nice is that? There's other people in America that are taking inner work seriously. But they're very few and far between. And I don't know what my point was in that. I came back to that. That's an ongoing, now watch this. Okay, I brought that up twice, right? The way that it feels like, the way I feel orphaned or estranged from the normal world, right? That's an archetypal pattern. That's an orphan pattern, right? And that's an outsider archetype, an orphan archetype. That's like in Cain and Abel, that's Cain, except he gets really mad about it and gets taken over by that energy and kills his brother and puts himself in a way worse situation. He had an autonomous complex running him. So, I've noticed this before, but I'm doing it right in front of you. So when you notice that you start telling the same story over and over again, you start making meaning out of your life by some particular script. Oh yeah, the rest of the world's so asleep. This sucks. I'm all by myself. It's true in a way. It is where we are, but that's charged with archetypal energy that's not mine, that's in the collective unconscious. And so by noticing that, by having some mythic and symbolic knowledge, then you can notice, okay, what's that complex running on? What's that script running on? And then you can pull it apart and put attention on it and start to take care of it and nurture it and bring it into your life and have a relationship with it so that it isn't so autonomous. Might still run a little bit, but it's not going to be autonomous. So you see how I just grabbed that? I started speaking the same story over and over again. I repeated it twice in one podcast. Okay, that, look at that. What is that? Oh, that's this archetype, that's this script. Yes, I know I have that. Bring it into awareness. Do that as much as you can all the time. Right? So that's part of this work. Okay, now I'm going to scroll back and I'm going to look at your comments. I don't think I'm going to get a chance tonight. What time is it? Yeah, maybe, but to talk about this new paper. I might mention it at the end. It'll be up on the website. I'll mention where you can get it. Okay. Let me see what you guys have been saying. Okay. When you first go into calcination, is it a painful experience? Well, that whole list that I just gave of like the different kinds of awareness that you're going into, of noticing your shadow material, it's not physically painful, but it's emotionally uncomfortable. It's emotionally uncomfortable to go through, something triggers some kind of shame, and then you say, I'm going to trace that down, I'm going to figure where that is, I'm going to go back into my early life, I'm going to go find that in my parents, and I'm going to start digging that up, and then maybe I'm going to feel that shame. Consciously, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to do an active imagination process. I'm going to allow my own imagination to bring the shame up, and I'm going to feel the shame and I'm going to cry through it. Right? So now you're cognitively and physiologically moving the energy through your body instead of repressing it. And then when you do that, you get relief. So, is it better to feel discomfort while you clean up and then to get relief? Yeah, that's the best thing to do. Otherwise, it just piles up and you wind up like all these totally screwed up people that are not doing anything on themselves. And so, sure, it's uncomfortable, but after a while you get used to it and it's not that uncomfortable, especially if you have your partner helping you with it. That's like they're doing it too. And it's like everything's uncomfortable, right? I mean, it's like working out in the gym is uncomfortable. Getting up in the morning's uncomfortable. All kinds of stuff are uncomfortable. It's just that most people are unfamiliar with this kind of discomfort. And so it's in the shadow. It seems mysterious. It seems like a serpent in a cave. And it's got a mythic overlay. And so they're like, oh, I don't want to touch that. I don't want to go in where that dragon lives. But it's no more difficult than anything else. It's just a type of modality that a lot of people aren't familiar with yet. So as you get more familiar with it, it's no big deal. So, James, see the part now I am overthinking is the aspect of spiritual bypassing from your integral shadow paper, but then being aware of it is like chanting. I gotta get my better glasses on because the text. Hey, maybe I can change the size of the text. Let me see here. Probably in the settings somewhere. Okay. Then being aware of it is like chanting, not Slytherin, not slithery, isn't it? It's, I don't know what not Slytherin, not slithery is, but it's known. Yes, exactly. Exactly. You notice your shadow bypassing, right? You notice you're distracting. You notice you're displacing. You notice that you're projecting. You notice that you're doing some kind of practice or habit, which is basically moving your consciousness away from darker material, and you noticed it. Well, now that you noticed it, great. Now you got your eyeball on that, and you can start putting attention on it, like we've been saying. So I know I'm reading backwards here in time on these these chat on your comments, and so I might have covered some of this stuff, but that's okay. And the types of validation are synchronous, not peer-derived. Yeah, they are peer-derived a little bit, James, though, because when your peers, your peer group, or your outer social group, is also part of the movie of life and part of the mirroring. And so when peers do things, say things, or bring things to your attention, or insult you, or hurt you, or do whatever they do, they're displaying, they're doing that almost, you could say, on behalf of the greater psyche, which is, I don't want to say that necessarily it's as clean as your psyche is making those things show up in them, but it's all one system. And so when your peer group acts a certain way, or mirror, or reflects certain things that you notice, that you find meaningful, that you use as a mirror, just like if there's any other kind of a situation in life that's circumstantial. So let's see here. James, the types. Let's see. M. Glez 88, what's going on? Hello from Southeast Texas. Hi. Hello from Texas. All right. We got some Texans in here, actually. That's cool. Colin's in here, too. He's a Texan. Or like a pendulum instead of archon. Could you separate yourself from your inner propaganda and maybe call those archons? Yeah, archons are complexes. Remember we were talking about complexes? Patterns, split off parts of the psyche that have kind of become their own little orphan parts that are kind of running their own little program and trying to get fed, and little tricksters. And so complexes and autonomous scripting are, you could see those as, how like in Gnosticism they have the demiurge and then they have sub-archons. It translates perfectly into psychology, into Jungian psychology. So the demiurge itself is the ego, and then the sub-archons are your complexes. I'd have to hear more about the pendulum analogy to understand that. It's all part of know thyself. Absolutely. The whole thing is part of know thyself. But Joseph Campbell made myth interesting again. There is Carol Peterson now, the hero within 6 major archetypal aspects. Yeah, you know what? For whatever reason, I never fully jived with Carol Peterson's chart map. I totally jive with Robert Moore. He's the most exciting, he's dead now, he's been dead for 11 years. He's the most exciting Jungian to me by far. Michael Meade is pretty old now, but he was really, James Hillman was exciting, Michael Meade was exciting, Robert Moore was exciting. There were some exciting Jungians out there. It's just their generation. They're either dead now or they're in their twilight years, and we just don't have that many right now. Doing what I can to be exciting. Yeah, Carol Pearson. Yep, that's definitely. But check out Robert Moore, especially men. King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. That's the book. Or go to, there's a YouTube channel called Neo-Jungian Structural Psychology. It's called Neo-Jungian Structural something. Just put in Neo-Jungian Structural. And the guy's uploading all the Robert Moore lectures. And you can also go to Robert Moore's website. I think it's robertmoorephd.com, and you can download the whole catalog of all his lectures so you know what they're all about. and then you can just go on to that YouTube channel or just type in Robert Moore lecture, and there's just, I don't know how many are in the catalog, 100, 120 or something like that. There's a lot, and he's just such a tremendous badass. So Colin says, it reminds me of Samu, where work is meditation in action. Yeah. Well, I don't know the term Samu. I don't know. I'm not as familiar with that, with all the Eastern stuff. But I know what Zen meditation in action is. But this is more active than that. This is more active than Eastern practices. Eastern practices tend to be more about you go into the stuff and you're liberating your ego from the attachments, non-attachment. Alchemy in Jungian psychology is much more active than Eastern practices. It's much more like, we're going into this and we're going down in there and we're burning this stuff up, and you're like putting attention on it. It's much more active and willful. Your comments are great. Everybody's comments are great. Yes, the point is, must be a living practice. We must participate, embrace every pain, failure, and summit. Yes, absolutely. The experience is the point. Magic means nothing unless earthed. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, we're just living it. We're living the practice. We're being life artists, or making alchemical art out of our lives. And then you can look at what me and Melissa did. I made that movie. We always knew that we were going to make a movie. We didn't know it was going to include Melissa dying. That we didn't know. But we were filming everything because it was all so extraordinary. And so now I'm going to keep making movies because I got so much material. But you can make movies about your life art. James makes some pretty cool art out of his commentary videos and makes them very artistic. I mean, he's James, I've looked at your art, and you're just a tremendous artist. And so the way you make your YouTube videos is just very, very creative and very cool. So you can do that, however you want to do it. Colin's a beekeeper, and after I started reading I'm reading these bee shamanism books now, and that seems to me like an area that he probably needs to check out. I know he probably already has, but take that even more seriously. I'm gonna share this one book. What is the name of this book? Let me open up my. While I'm talking to you, I'm gonna open up Amazon. And I'm gonna get the name of this book because it's in my bedroom now. I can't remember the name of it, but this will be right up Colin's alley, because let me go into Amazon because I ordered it there, and tell you the name of this book so you can order a copy, about this English Welsh bee shaman that is teaching the author about it's called The Shamanic Way of the Bee, Ancient Wisdom and Healing Practices of the Bee. The other one that I ordered that I haven't started yet is Meeting the Melissae, the Ancient Greek Bee Priestesses of Demeter. So there you go. I would recommend those to Colin. Okay, let me keep going through your comments here. And I'll cut out the section of this broadcast where I just went through the shadow work practices. I went through that chapter, that 21st century alchemy chapter of shadow work. I'll cut that out and put that up on the main YouTube channel probably tomorrow. So back to here. Okay. Because the path is not always fun. Yeah, James, put your YouTube channel name into the chat so Colin can do that, because you guys are. Oh yeah, you're in Colorado, James. That's right. Okay, so because the pain is not always fun, I need to hear that. Oh yeah, of course. Life is not always fun. This is another big part of at least, this is in every good spiritual teaching, right? This is the Taoist yin yang symbol. You got to accept the night and the day, the light and the dark, life and death. They're both part of the process. You can't have one without the other. And you can't have a life without going into the shadow, it's like that famous quote by Jung. I just saw it again, that something about the primary cause of neurosis and internal suffering is people failing to face their own stuff, right? So the more you frantically, manically try to unconsciously shove your stuff down, it just makes you neurotic and crazy, and you just fall apart internally. The better thing to do is learn how to process your stuff, and then you become whole, and then you learn wisdom, and then you learn how to clean up, and then you can teach it to your children or to other people around you. That's the better thing to do. And so you're always going to have pain and suffering. That's going to be part of the equation, right? But the better thing to do is have tools for how to use that and how to process that to get more of your soul code going. That's the way to go. The bees. Let's see here. Don't sweat the petty stuff, and don't pet the sweaty stuff. Don't sweat the petty stuff, and don't pet the sweaty stuff. That's funny. They almost don't sound like modern day beatniks at the place you mention. Except, James says, except I have the sarcasm enough to offer you cheese to go with the wine served at the lonely pity party. Oh my God, yeah. We are with you now. Oh, look, more parts of me that resonate. Okay. Hi, Dana. Hi, yeah, she says hi to everybody checking in from Minnesota. I don't know, you might have to, I don't know if you came in later, but we went through a whole bunch of shadow work practices and stuff out of the book Shadow Tech today. Kind of went over the list again. Okay. All right, okay, guys, and so, okay, so looks like Colin checked out. So, all right. I'll go for a few more minutes and then we'll head out. I got to cook dinner. So we got done what we wanted to do. Talking to you guys in the chat is important too. I think that's only second. That's to delivering some kind of good content. Talking to you guys is important. So that's the community part, and that's where I get to talk. I get to actually direct this material into your personal situation. There's nothing more important than that, because otherwise it's just theory. And it's just it has to be directed into your personal situation, and it has to come in comments to your personal situation. That's the absolute best way to work with this material. So talking to you guys in the chat is absolutely very, very important. So, okay. I got a paper coming out. I'm just going to say this last thing and then we're going to go. So look on the articles page on shadowtechalchemy.com, and it will be up there tomorrow, and in the papers link too. I'll have that up there within a day. And basically this is a kind of an academic paper actually, and it's basically saying that spiritual paths from around the world have been doing, they have been to varying degrees introducing or carrying shadow work for thousands of years. But they've been doing it in different capacities, different cultures, different levels of depth, different approaches. And I kind of break it down into different modes of descent. And I kind of tell you that the monotheistic religions are essentially shadow bypassing spiritualities to a great deal. You know, Catholic confession, that's something. Even exorcism, you know, that's working with complexes. Shamanism, indigenous shamanism is, you know, also has this working with complexes, you know, through soul retrieval and depossession and all of that. But older spiritual systems, the people of the ancient world were more, their psyches were more collectivized. They were more group-minded. They were less individualistic, and they were less capable of having their own thoughts and doing their own thing and processing their own emotions and processing their own shadows and doing all of that. Even today, most people, most of the time, are collective. They're like bees. But in the modern world, the capacity for people to do individual shadow work is greater now than it's ever been. But at the same time, well, let me say that let me go back. In older traditions, the way people were dealing with the shadow is, instead of processing it individually, still the same way we're basically doing it today, we project it onto scapegoats, and then we go to war with them, or we have conflicts with them, and we dump it out onto other people. And so that's kind of how that was done. And you would also have collective rituals where you could put sin onto a scapegoat and send an actual scapegoat out, or you could put it onto a human sacrifice, right? And you could actually, if everybody could collectivize around that ritual, you could, people could feel relief from their shadow material, right? Through collective ritual. And that's how it was done, other than the specific cases of shamanistic practices or exorcism, where you're going in there to try to repair something that was created through trauma. That's, like I was saying earlier, it's another category of the shadow. That's the trauma-based shadow, not the developmental shadow. So we were more collective, and then and even the Mediterranean mystery traditions and all of that, they're going into the darkness. There's a lot of traditions that go into the darkness. The certain Tibetan practices, there's a lot of traditions that go into darkness, but a lot of them use collective ritual and or they just don't really stay in it very much. The Eastern practices are more about liberating from it. You notice it but then you try to dissociate from it. And but over time, the human ego has evolved and become more and more individuated and individualized, which is good and bad. And so that has made it more possible and more necessary to actually do personal shadow work. So when Jung, let me go back to the alchemists. So the Hermetic alchemists, even though I don't think they were really doing shadow work to the extent of what's available today, they saw the map. They saw the map. They saw the cycle, right? And by using as above, so below, they're able to see the natural cycles. They're able to take, okay, you have seasons out there, and then you get seasons in here. And then how can you help this along? And so so they had the map, the Negrito, the Albedo, the Rubedo. They had the map, or whichever version of that. They had the map, but they were, only capable to varying degrees of being able to actually do the actual calcination work. But they were doing it. I mean, you look at those alchemical drawings, those woodcuts and stuff, like the one, it's the king, it's the alchemical, it's the king. He's the subject. He's the alchemist. He's becoming a king. He's maturing into a king by doing the work. You have the king and the queen actually in a lot of those drawings, but a lot of times the character is a king, and there's that one picture of he's sliding into an oven. He's being slid into an oven. His head is going into an oven to burn up all the scripts and complexes and identifications and shadow material and everything that you want to burn up. So they had it down. They had the formula down. We don't know all the things that they were doing or how effective they all were and stuff to varying degrees. When Jung came up and he went and grabbed all that stuff and said, he was just channeling. He was channeling the next incarnation of alchemical practice and giving it to the 20th century world, right? And so when he came up and he was just doing that on his own, he was just being inwardly directed. And then when he found alchemy, I don't know, in his 40s or 50s or something, then when he got onto alchemy, then he was like, oh, this is what we're doing here. Just like what happened to me and Melissa. We're doing the practice before we found out it was alchemy. And so he figured it out, it was alchemy, and then he studied it, and then he said, yes, this totally overlays onto what we're doing, and handed that off to us. And so now we have an updated version of Hermetic alchemy. And we have access to the Eastern practices and the shamanism. We can put it all together now. So now we have a lot more, we have tremendous tools, even though I can tell that even somebody like me or me and Melissa, who are on the cutting edge of doing this work, there's still limits. There's still limits because of our time and place. I recognize that the psyche is still limited. The 2026 psyche, I was born in 1969, not 1869, but not 2069 either. And so, we come with the operating system and the cultural operating system. And even if the soul is advanced, you still got the OS that's running on that thing. So there's limitations to what we can do, but slowly but surely we evolve. And so we got now that we have, with the Jungian system and the updates that we put on that, whether it's with the ayahuasca stuff or whether it's with the internal family systems or the somatic therapy and whatever, all the stuff that we have now. When you make this your business, you're on the cutting edge. And so we are more developed, more advanced than any alchemists of any day. Those of us who are dedicated to this, we have more potential than anybody else in prior history, except for, there's always the anomaly. There's, like Carl Jung himself would basically, and there's a tendency to try to turn him into basically Jesus, So, but people could do that. People 500 years from now, 200 years from now, could call Carl Jung, the second coming of Christ or whatever, third coming, whatever. And so I don't know what I mean by third coming, but in other words, In other words, we're always looking for a new savior. There's always a new icon, a new idol, right? So the tendency is to do that. But I don't know if we would put it on him or not. But archetypally, these avatars, they show up, right? These Buddhas, right? They show up. Jung is one of those Buddhas. And so we got that now. Okay, so let me go through your comments, and then we'll head out for the evening. Dana says that you feel lately that you've checked out mentally, just needed a break. I was too stressed out. I've been in hermit mode, just staying in, I don't know, staying in what that is, much as possible, and been so tired and drained. Well, I feel like my dreams have been hijacked, and there's themes of family trauma and fear of failure. Okay, right. Needing to redefine my why and redeem my confidence and motivation. Okay, let me say a couple things about this. When you get a Negrito period like that, because the Negrito isn't just one time in life. Negritos cycle in and out, larger or smaller. And when you're in a Negrito period like this is where the good stuff is coming up. Even though it's uncomfortable and it can be disorienting, and you feel like your connection to your center is lost, because in Jungian psychology, this is the ego self axis and it's off center. And so you feel alienated, as they call it. And so this is normal. It's part of your, on one hand, your complexes, your pain body is a big part of this cycling. So this is nothing new for you. This is a similar cycle that's in the background that's been going. It's just the newest version of it or whatever. But so you should keep track of those dreams, and you should journal this material and tolerate this downswing that you're in, and recognize that you're getting access. If you weren't feeling really good right now and everything was flowing, Dana, you wouldn't be able to see the shame and the fear and the pain and the family trauma. But that's what you have to work with, because you're an alchemist. And so how else are you going to get access to this material to work with unless you bottom out? So the complex or the pain body is bringing you through, but thankfully it's taken you through its territory, and you get to learn about it now. You get to learn what's in there. You get to catalog it and learn about it, and then you get to emotionally process it. And didn't we talk about the emotional processing method? Again, always going to send everybody back to it. It's in both of my books. It's called Emotional Processing. It's in there. And so you want to emotionally process that material that's coming up. Cry through it and feel it. And really let it, and just trust that this part of the cycle will shift. You will move out of it. But if you will do everything you can to learn about what's down there at the bottom while you're in it, and treat it like the scientist that you are, then you will come out on the other side of it with a lot of integration, and a part of that structure, that pain body, that complex structure will have been integrated. A chunk of it, a small chunk, will have been integrated. And some relief will come out of that, and some development will have come out of that, because you took the time and the effort to work with the stuff that's down there at the bottom while it was there. That's what that bottom part is all about. That's where the evolution actually happens, is in the winter period. So no, I know it sucks, but it's not going to be forever. It wasn't there 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, or whatever when we were talking. So it's pretty recent, and it'll cycle back out. But while you're in it, you can comb through it and figure out what is the junk that's down there that's showing up in this period. That's very important, what I just said. Oh, you guys, so listen, I've kind of arranged for myself and this is another thing to talk about. I've kind of arranged for myself, like right now I'm kind of I've gotten a blessing by being able to live in this house and not have to work so much, but I lost my wife and my soulmate. So it's like, which one would I rather have? Of course I would rather have her back. I'm not saying that was a direct trade or anything like that, but it's like there's always trade-offs. There's always both sides of the coin. And, but in general, I have, in order to be an artist, in order to be an alchemist, I have very carefully curated my life, even when I was in California, so that I don't have to work that much, so that my bills are at the absolute minimum, so I don't have to join the rat race, right? So I don't have any degrees, or I don't have any professional this, that, or what this normal stuff that people get from Matrix life. But I have more peace, more time, more calm. And I can't live any other way, and I won't do that. I will not go join the rat race. And so you have to be creative and resourceful, and sometimes you can't do it alone. And America is a very individualistic place. And a lot of Americans don't realize how much they're screwing themselves by being so autonomous and individualistic. And they don't know what's going on in other countries and other parts of the world, almost the rest of the world, where people are working together, families have businesses together, good friends have businesses together, people are working in small groups, and they're not just on their own, just trying to scrape by. They've teamed up with each other. And so Americans have to learn how to do that. And I like the whole thing of eco-villages and intentional communities and all of that. And that's another evolution that Americans are going to have a difficult time with that, because they're so individualistic. But in Europe and other parts of the world, they're doing that more successfully because they're less individualistic. But yeah, we have to be very resourceful. We have to make sacrifices to not have to join the matrix and have to slave in the rat race. And then we need to work with each other and find other people that want to do that too, and come together to make situations for ourselves so we can facilitate that kind of life. Okay. You've been tired of trying to heal the same stuff again and again. Parts of me have been wanting to give up, tired of being alone and struggling. Yes, parts do that. Parts feel abandoned. They feel orphaned. They feel like nobody's helping. Orphan parts feel that way, and it sucks when they're active. And I feel for those parts. I know what it's like. And that is how they feel, and in a way they're right, but in a way they're not really, because they're just child parts, and they're just seeing through a child's lens, and they're not recognizing all the resourcefulness that you have and your capacities as an adult. And so, but I understand, orphan girl's up, and or whatever we're going to call her, and she's influencing your thinking, and I understand that. You just got to talk to her, and and let her kind of have her perspective for a while, and then recognize that it is a long struggle. It does sometimes feel like no relief is coming, but I'm telling you, when you stay on it, and if you feel that no relief is coming, just go deeper into the work. Use your intuition even more strongly and find what you need to do to go deeper into the work, and just commit more, commit more, commit more. Develop more courage to go into the stuff. pull up more of the stuff and just stay on the work. Keep doing the shadow work, keep doing the integration, keep doing the journaling, keep pulling up the stuff. And then, you know, I mean, if you need me, I mean, I just started working with another woman yesterday that I'm going to be talking to somewhat regularly, or we'll see, you know, what she wants to do with that. But there's always that, and you know, you have a lot of options and a lot, and it's not really the way that little girl part is seeing things. But she does have her perspective, and I understand that when she's up, that's the way things look and feel. Colin says he hit rock bottom from 2008 through 2011, and it was rough. So I tell you, and like you, I was in complete hermit mode when I started trying to better myself. Is when I met my wife, and she saved me. Right, there you go. I had my dark night of the soul, my kind of big one. I've had a number of them, but the big one was in 2004, late 2004, and then I just kind of I just totally went into hermit mode, and I held that mode. Although I became a researcher, I became a legal assistant, and I was working on foreclosure law, and I was studying all the red pill stuff, and I was very, very busy. But I was busy in inner mode and research mode and at my studio a lot, and not really doing my band stuff anymore because I was just really inwardly focused, studying Jungian psychology and intuitive sciences and doing all that. And that lasted from 2004 till 20. Well, I met Melissa a little later, 2000, maybe 8, 9, 10. But we got together in late 2012. So that was like 8 years. 8 years of hermitage. And then she came in, and then I had a partner. And then we kept doing the work, but we did it together. And at least we could do it together. Dana says, yes, because a lot of this is started right when I got a promotion at work, more hours, responsibilities, etc. I feel like I was excited for this. Then these dreams come in and remind me how my dad never showed confidence in my abilities. I want to take off work, but I can't afford to. I feel totally depleted. I wish I could join a commune. Well, you can join a commune. You actually can. Yes. So all that stuff is coming up right now, and you have to work with that sense of grief and shame and anger at your dad and your family line stuff. This is the work. And it's okay to not take a promotion. And if you feel that you can't afford to live, you know, here's the thing is that we kind of go, okay, well, I'm going to go in this direction. I'm going to get this kind of job. I'm going to work over here. And because some things line up, we say that's the right way. But then when a bunch of other things don't line up to make that happen, we're frustrated and it's not working out. Because you know, the ego sometimes wants things different from what the soul wants, from the big S self wants. And so sometimes the ego wouldn't like it to quit your job and just go move into the country and go work it down at the country store and just go rent a room from some old lady for $500 a month. Your ego wouldn't like that. It would say, "Oh my God, I'm failing. I'm not living up to my expectations," and all of that kind of stuff. But your soul might say, "No, this is what you need. You need to relax. You need to be closer to nature. You need to have a lot of time off. You don't even need a car anymore. You're gonna ride your bicycle around town." You know, a completely different, a total change, right? And so that requires certain kind of sacrifice and courage to do something very different. And sometimes you have to do that, even just to test, to move psychic energy and to move parts and to move things. You can't, you have to try things that are sometimes radical. And usually whatever, and radical in the direction, for the kind of people we are, radical in the direction of what the alchemist wants, right? What the mystic wants. You might have to serve the mystic instead of the nurse or the professional. Let's see here, what else? James. You're welcome, James. Value in the exchange, and I'm richer now. Oh, you're very welcome. It's my pleasure. Like I said, I couldn't do it without you guys. It's great to have you guys. It's great to have you, James, and Dana, and Colin, and everybody else that's in here hanging out with me. It's why I'm doing it. Otherwise, I just write articles, right? If I didn't think that talking to people, like this is not even as good as having it in person. But this is the next, this is, person is the best, Zoom calls are next, and then this is, behind that. But it's better than me just typing articles and putting them out there and just, trying to find some website that'll publish them or whatever and just not interfacing. That's not healthy. That's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to, we're a community, we're a greater family, and especially when you're on this path, we have to support each other. We have to find ways of supporting each other and being there for each other and helping each other. So that's what I'm doing. And without Melissa around, what else am I going to do? So that's what I'm doing. Yeah, I got my workshop coming up. I'm going to keep doing those. I haven't had the first one yet, but I'm going to keep doing those at that place and look for other places to do those so I can meet people and do it in person. And it's just so much more, deep and stuff to do it in person. So it's got to happen. And people got to get off the internet and stop, relating this way as the main way that they relate. Okay, so it was a great show, everybody. ShadowTechAlchemy.com. MelissaMariMovie.com. If anybody wants to see them, I just showed the movie. It hasn't been publicly released yet. But if anybody wants it, just get in touch with me one way or the other, on all the different ways. And I'll send you the link to it so you can learn about Melissa. And some point it'll be out, but I'm shopping it to film festivals right now. And if anybody has any comments or suggestions about what we want to work with next week, let me know. And everybody have a great week. Have a great weekend. And thanks again. And, people are making some final comments. They're saying thanks and bye. Thanks and talk to you later, Colin. And Dana, even with more work, I still just have to come home to my little box apartment just alone with no one but the cat. I might be reaching out soon. Yeah, you might want to do that, Dana. You need to learn how to cry. I'm gonna help you do that. I'm gonna help you learn how to cry. You've got to learn how to cry. Just start tonight. That's got to be broken through. And then you'll feel so much better when you can do that. Thanks, James. Yeah. So, and there's a lot of options for you, and there's a lot of, and we've even talked about some of the great things that are going on in your life, Dana, a couple weeks ago and stuff. And so this is how an orphan part is seeing, and this is how she sees things right now, and she's up right now. So we got to learn more about those parts. And how to talk to them and how to work with them. And so we'll do that. Okay. Take a nice bath or something and go for a nice nature walk. And I will see you all next Tuesday, and have a great week. Bye, folks.